Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. My little brother 3M is actually my fiancé's 25M child. Yes, the title is crazy, I know. My fiancé 25M and I, 24F, have been together since we were 17/18. Honestly, he has always been kind, handsome, funny, and people would often say I was so lucky to have him. I thought I was lucky too. He's always treated me with love and respect, so this has left me absolutely stunned. I've always had a good relationship with my mom. It was always just her and me against the world. My dad passed away in an accident when I was young. We used to joke that we were the real-life Rory and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls. My mom frequently dated guys and they were usually great, but nothing ever really got past the initial stages. About 4 years ago, my mom told me she was pregnant, which was a huge surprise. My mom was around 42 at the time, and although she'd been dating someone recently, I hadn't met the guy but knew she was seeing someone. It was still a big shock. She never thought she could get pregnant at her age. She had me when she was quite young. Oops. And I could tell she was stressed and anxious. I decided to support her as she had always supported me and tried to reassure her. Then she had my little brother, now 3. I have a close bond with my brother. I've helped take care of him since he was born, and I just adore the little guy. My fiancé also always helped with my brother. We take him out for ice cream, to the playground, swimming in the summer, etc. But nothing ever seemed off. He was just my boyfriend at the time, spending time with me and my brother. Now, let me tell you how I found out. My fiancé and I have been living together since we graduated from college. He wasn't home because he was out with friends, but I stayed in because I just wanted to relax on the couch. One time, while binge-watching a series on Netflix, my laptop died, and I was too lazy to get the charger, so I grabbed my fiancé's iPad. I knew the password, but had never actually used it before. The iPad logged in, and I got a ton of message pings. I guess he hadn't used it in a while either. Anyway, this caught my attention, and I went to check, and of course I found everything. My mom's number wasn't saved under her name, but I recognized the number and verified it with my phone. She was telling him how guilty she felt, and that I should know. He said he felt guilty too, but couldn't lose me, and that they had screwed up. She said it wasn't fair for my brother to never know his father, and asked if he could live with the fact that his son would know him as an uncle, not a father. I lost it. What the actual F? There weren't many older messages, just a few photos of my brother as a newborn, my mom during her pregnancy, and various pictures of my brother growing up in an album. I couldn't take it anymore. I broke down crying because this had been going on for so long, and I waited for my fiancé to come home. I wish I could have been one of those women who can pretend and plan things before confronting a cheater, but I couldn't. That night, he came home later, around 11:30 p.m., and I just handed him the iPad with the conversation open, and I saw his face turn pale. I demanded an explanation. When? How? Why? At first, he didn't want to talk, but he knew he had to. Apparently, a few years ago, when I was on a trip with some friends, a girls' trip, my fiancé and my mom had dinner together, which wasn't unusual since he had been part of the family for so long. Sometimes my mom and fiancé would eat together at our local restaurant even when I was busy with sports or out. They did this just like I did with his parents. Somehow, he couldn't explain how because he couldn't articulate it. One thing led to another, and they ended up sleeping together. They felt guilty, but apparently not guilty enough, because they slept together 2 to 3 more times, using the excuse of meeting up to discuss how to tell me. Apparently, when my mom got pregnant, they stopped sleeping together, and decided not to tell me because my fiancé loved me and couldn't lose me, and my mom didn't want to lose her daughter. So now here we are, with 2 of the most disgusting people. I obviously broke off the engagement, told my mom never to talk to me again, and moved in with a friend. I feel bad for my brother because I genuinely love him, but I can't be around him now. I just can't. I feel like it will remind me of all the times we talked about having kids, about how I would be his baby's mom, the only mom, and we've talked about this future since we were 17. So every time I think about it, I feel sick knowing we were really talking about raising his baby with someone else while he still had those dreams with me. I want to vomit. Editor's note: the comments are mostly supportive, with some sharing their own stories about cutting off parents and some stories of spouses sleeping with parents. How is this even a thing? People are wild. Update. First of all, I want to thank everyone for the kind messages and comments. I wasn't expecting this much support. I'm still a mess, not going to lie, but reading the comments has helped me feel better, like a mini therapy session, so thank you all again. As I feared, I actually had to face my ex near my office this week. I knew this was coming, but thought maybe I had more time. My ex was the one who approached me. Yesterday, Wednesday, after work, as I was walking to my car, my ex was lingering around waiting. I thought about running, not gonna lie, but I guess at that moment, I felt strong enough to get it over with, instead of having it hanging over my head, waiting to be approached again. He asked if we could talk, and I said yes, but I didn't want to chat in a coffee shop like we were old friends. That was ridiculous, so I told him to just talk right there where we were on the street. But somehow it wasn't busy, but also not completely empty. It felt right. Basically, he apologized 100 times and said I deserve better. I agree. He said he really loves me, and still does, but he would understand if I didn't want anything to do with him. He said if I did consider giving him another chance, he would go to therapy, either alone or together or both, and he would work hard to regain my trust. I told him it wasn't possible, that too much damage had been done. This sounds calm as I type it, but at the time, things were more heated with louder voices and harsher words. Anyway, he said he was or would be a bit fuzzy in the process of gaining custody, partial, of my brother, and that he actually wanted to be his dad. He said he didn't want to be with my mom, that it was just a stupid mistake, sure, because a mistake 4 to 5 times is totally random. He couldn't explain why he did it in the first place. I don't think he even knows himself. I asked if he'd cheated on anyone else before, and he said no, not sure if I believe it, but he seemed sincere. I asked why he didn't confess, and he said after doing the deed, he always felt panic and realized he could lose me, but he didn't want that. I told him this had to come out at some point. What was his plan? To have my brother around and ignore the relationship forever? He said he hadn't thought that far ahead and was basically in survival mode, planning to tell me someday. I asked if he felt my mom seduced him, and he said it was mutual, which made me want to vomit again. I asked if he had been in contact with my mom since I found out. He said yes, but mostly about my brother. He didn't go into more detail, and I didn't press for more information on that. He said he had told his parents the other day or the day before, not sure, Monday, Tuesday, about everything. His parents weren't happy but were glad to start building a relationship with my brother, their grandson. Honestly, all of this felt like a punch to the gut. I don't know why. His parents wanted to reach out to me, but he told them to wait until he had approached me first, which is why he was here. I asked if he started or thought about custody before I found out, and he said no, but when I found out, it gave him the push he needed. Great. Seems like I helped him get his S.T. together. And this past week he'd been sorting all that mess out. That's why he didn't try to see me sooner. He sounded defeated, but the whole thing made me, besides being sad, angry. Before, I was mostly depressed, but now I'm so mad. I feel like he's still in an okay place, and he's not paying for his actions other than me leaving him. He'll have my brother, his parents, and others and continue his life while I lose everything. I hate him. We didn't part ways on good terms, and I told him never to come near me again, and that was it. He asked if I would still see my brother, saying I was important to him and trying to make me feel guilty, and it worked, but I still don't think I can. I don't know much about my mom, and I really hope she doesn't try to contact me soon because right now, I'm fuming and can't handle it. I'm going to reach out to family and friends and finally drop the bomb today. I think it's time, and after talking to him, I got the extra motivation I needed. Editor's note: the top comment suggested moving to Australia. Can't fault that line of thinking. Update 2. A lot has happened. IDROPPED the bomb. And here's how it went down. First, I posted in our family Facebook group that we share, which is on my mom's side of the family. I used some inspiration from what you all suggested in my previous post and said something along the lines of, I want to inform all of you that my wedding with X has been permanently called off because I discovered that my mother's name and my ex's name had been having a sexual relationship over the past few years, which resulted in the birth of my little brother name. I was unaware of this and found out last week. I will no longer maintain a relationship with name mother and name X for obvious reasons. I appreciate your understanding and felt it was fair to let you know the situation as I value transparency and honesty above all. I also attached screenshots of my mom's messages, what she sent to my fiancé when I found out, and her attempts to rewrite history. Before I blocked her, I didn't open her messages until before the bomb drop. I didn't want to hear/read her try to convince me. It exploded. I had family members reaching out all day through messages and calls after the bomb dropped. I can tell most of them are supportive, and I could tell they were just shocked. A few questioned whether that's the whole story and maybe I misunderstood. My grandparents are in the maybe you misunderstood camp, which wasn't surprising since my mom is very close to them, and as I've said before, she's always been a good mom, so there were no red flags. I'm going to move in with a cousin who is more like a sister to me. I hadn't contacted her before because I knew once she knew, everyone else would too, which is why I went to my friend first. My cousin is livid on my behalf and offered for me to stay with her and her 2 kids until I can get back on my feet. I accepted and will be moving next week. I'm a little worried this will make it easier for my mom to reach me, but I can't stay at my friend's forever. Afterward, I quickly posted a similar message to my friends. We share most friends from high school and our local college on Instagram. I made a close friend story and tagged most of them. This has gone viral within our friend group. Actually, one of my friends sent me a Reddit post and asked if it was me. I confirmed it. They were all shocked and speechless. They never thought my ex would do anything like this. They said, he was crazy about you. Well, it seems he was crazy enough to do something insane. The friend group is divided, with some fully on my side and some thinking it's not the whole truth. I told everyone who reached out that if they didn't believe me, they should ask their friend if he was pursuing custody of my brother. That shut them up for now. My ex has apparently deleted his social media. Also, as I suspected, my ex's parents called me. They were kind to me and very apologetic about everything. I get the feeling they are overwhelmed and deeply disappointed. However, it's clear they will support their son. They are upset with my mom and want nothing to do with her, but they're unsure how that will resolve with my brother and everything else. They tried to give me updates on custody and how my ex is doing, but I quickly shut it down and told them I didn't want any information. I want to move on. I also asked them not to contact me for the foreseeable future as I need space, especially if they are going to support my ex. He's living with his parents. Additionally, my ex and my mom have been trying to reach me since the bomb drop. They've tried calling my friend, whom she's blocked them, and contacting me from different numbers. I had to put my phone on silent and ignore everyone. However, my mom did send me a long message from a different number, and it was a strange one. She said I was being cruel and that she didn't think she raised me like that. She said she thought we had a better relationship than for me to air dirty laundry like this without talking to her first. That I didn't have the whole picture. She mentioned something that confused me. She said in her long message that the reason she slept with my ex was that he reminded her of my dad. It was grief. That she didn't mean to use him to heal her pain, but she wasn't strong enough. What does that even mean? Does she think my ex looks like my dad? Or his personality? Or what? I've seen pictures of my dad, and yeah, my ex isn't that different, but they're not identical either. I mean, they have brown/dirty blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin, but that's not exactly rare. I don't see what else. I don't know. It confused me and actually made me want to confront my mom just to know what the heck is going on. Out of all the things she could have said, I did not expect that. I'm doing a little better. I'm not crying for hours or wanting to kill them anymore. But I'm still sad, and it feels like this isn't my life, like it's some big joke or a bad dream, and I'll wake up to my normal life. I also need to really start planning my future and start applying for jobs in different cities, or maybe seriously check out opportunities abroad. I might take 2 to 3 days off work to really think and do some research. I'm so scared. I feel frozen, but I know I need to start moving. Quick update. Hey everyone, it seems posting on my profile will be much easier now for quicker or smaller updates, rather than one big sign up. So here's what's happening. My friend group is divided. Some of his closest friends have said I should give him another chance, that no one is perfect, but he loves me, that he's always been good to me, and I shouldn't turn my back on him. They even said Max, my brother, and I could be a perfect little family, and that I could ensure my brother has a better stepmom than his actual relatives, right? This is so messed up. They're talking as if he did something minor or even average wrong. Like he lied about being fired, or like he forgot to pay our bills for a month, like what the hell. I have some girlfriends who have been there for me and supporting me, which is great. But the friend group isn't as solid anymore, and people are taking sides. However, I did talk to Max on the phone. I admit I had a bit to drink that night because I'd gone out to dinner with a few friends and had some wine and a cocktail. It was a short and emotional call. I was pretty tipsy, and he seemed emotionally drained too. I feel so stupid for opening up and calling him. I said 1,000 times I didn't want to know more, but I was weak. Every time I feel like moving on, I get hit with everything all over again. My mind still can't process it. On my mom's side, not much is happening either. She keeps trying to fix it. My grandparents have reached out to me, but I haven't responded. I'm sure they're trying to support me. Final update. Hi everyone. I'm moving to Spain. I got a job as an au pair near one of the biggest cities in Spain. I'm so excited. I'll be flying out in a few days and starting on September 1st. Editor's note. It took me far too long to realize that this date is the 1st, not the month. Curse American-centered date standards and my dyslexia. With the family. The kids are adorable too. I'll also be learning Spanish, which I've always wanted to do, so it all feels like a gift from the heavens. I haven't told most people about it yet, just a few friends I trust and of course my cousin I'm living with. And also my boss. My mom is telling everyone that I'm being cruel to her when she just wants to fix things. She made a mistake and is trying to make it right, but I'm being difficult. She's only human. No surprises there. Now I really see how self-centered she's always been. I'm sad about losing the mother I thought I had. It feels like she's dead. My new therapist, yes, I started seeing one last week, says I'm grieving a lot. Max has been a bit distant since our last call. I've heard he's focusing on my brother and staying out of sight. I've had a few short calls with my brother which have been bittersweet, but he's doing okay. Of course, he doesn't know what's really going on, but he's happy to have a new dad. It doesn't hurt as much as it did before, but it still stings. Thank you all so much for your support. Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. Am I wrong for wanting to expose my stepfather to his kids? I really need an outside perspective on whether I'm the bad guy in this situation. I'm a 21-year-old male. I was put into foster care when I was 9 years old because of the abuse I suffered at the hands of my stepfather, the man my mother always chose over me. Despite all the support and interventions that were supposed to protect me, my mother refused to kick him out. Even after she had a restraining order against him, she let him back into our lives. Meanwhile, she kept having more kids with this man, my half-brothers, who are now 19 Richie and 16 James, making it clear that no matter what, she was going to keep letting him back in. She allowed him to make me the scapegoat for everything that went wrong in his life until I was eventually removed. Once I was gone, my mother was allowed to raise my brothers as if nothing had ever happened. As far as I know, my stepfather never laid a hand on them. My mother and that man are still together. I know because I've checked her Facebook more times than I'd like to admit. Growing up, it broke my heart to realize that my mother would rather give me up than fight for me. She could have kept me if she had left him, but she didn't. This abandonment left me with deep scars and a lot of issues to work through as I grew up. It didn't help that she cut off all contact with me almost immediately after I was placed in foster care. She didn't even show up for court-ordered visits. Foster care was really tough on me too. I bounced around 3 different families, and it wasn't until the last one that I got any therapy to help me process what had happened. A few days ago, out of the blue, I got a message on Facebook from Richie and James. They said they had been thinking about me a lot and wanted to get to know me. They even mentioned that our mother occasionally talks about me and wonders how I'm doing. They said they'd like to start some kind of relationship if I'm open to it. Richie even offered to drive him and James to visit me wherever I am in the country. Both of them seem kind in their messages, and I don't have any issues with them personally. At first, I was going to ignore the message because I don't want anything to do with my biological family. But then a dark thought crossed my mind. This might be my only chance to expose the truth about their father. I could finally tell my half-brothers everything he did to me, everything he put me through, and let the truth hit them like a ton of bricks. I know that if I do this, it'll probably ruin any chance of having a relationship with them. But honestly, I'm not sure I want one. I told my friend that I was thinking about doing this, and he said it was a really bad idea because it wouldn't achieve anything I wanted. He said it's likely to make them think I'm just bitter, spiteful, and won't make them have any issues with their dad. But I know I would want to know if my dad was like that. I would want to know the truth about how my dad treated others. I don't even know how much they know about why I was taken into care. So would I be the jerk if I went through with it? Related comments. Global Look 2821. Not wrong. What happened to you was horrible. You're likely to end up talking about what happened to you anyway if they want to get to know you, but they're not at fault for what their father and your mom put you through. So if they ask, maybe ask if they really want to know the truth about what happened. If they say yes, that's your permission. No Dress 1159. If the only reason you want to connect with them is to cause problems between them and their dad, then maybe you're wrong. But if you want to have a relationship with them and the topic comes up, you don't need to censor yourself or tell any lies about their dad. Watchful Scientist. No judgment, but your stepdad and their dad are different people. What do you gain by ruining their image of their dad? Will you be happy if they end up hating their dad and no longer having a relationship with him? Will it make you feel better to take away your brother's father from them? Because honestly, I can't see any reason to poison the well unless that's your end game, and that would make you the I have a half-sister. Our dad was terrible to me. He abused my mom terribly and abandoned us. And never paying child support, he dropped bombs and disappeared time and time again. If I wasn't happy, it was always my fault. My half-sister grew up with a loving, caring father. They're very close and she loves him deeply. She knows our dad, and I have a rough history, but I've never tried to hurt her relationship with him. I'm glad she has a good dad who treats her well. What would I gain by damaging their relationship? I'd be hurting her, and he's genuinely a different person because I'm much older than her and he's matured during that time. I'm not saying your stepdad is the same, but I'd never hurt my half-sister over my childhood pain. Update. Hi everyone, I wanted to come back and give you an update. First of all, thank you for all the advice and different perspectives. I really needed to hear them. So, after thinking a lot about what everyone said and after talking to my therapist, I realized that my original plan to tell my brothers everything about our stepfather wasn't really about helping them. A lot of it was because I'm still holding on to anger and hurt from my past, and that's not fair to them. A lot of you pointed out that they might not know the whole story and are innocent in all this. And honestly, that was hard to hear. I decided to reach out to my brother Richie and told him I'd like to meet up. I didn't mention anything about our mother or the situation with our stepfather. I figured if we were going to start a relationship, it would be better to take things slow and not dump all that heavy stuff on them right away. We ended up meeting at a cafe. I was extremely nervous, but when I saw them, I actually felt pretty good. They were both really nice, and we just talked about normal stuff like what we're up to, our favorite sports teams, that sort of thing. It was surprisingly easy to talk to them. At one point, James asked why I was put into foster care. That caught me off guard, but I decided to keep it vague and just said that things were complicated at home back then, and being in care was the best thing for me at the time. James started to push a bit for more details, but Richie told him to drop it, which was a huge relief. In the end, I'm really glad I went. They asked if we could keep in touch, and I said yes. I'm still figuring out how much to share about what happened, but for now, I'm just trying to focus on building a relationship with them. I realize that while the past is important, it doesn't necessarily have to dictate how things go with them now. So again, thank you to everyone who helped me see things more clearly. I feel a lot more hopeful about this, and I'm really glad I didn't go with my gut reaction to tell them everything right away. We'll see where things go from here, but I'm cautiously optimistic. Not sure if anyone cares about this anymore, but I thought I'd give a little more of an update. First off, I've read a lot of your comments. Many of you said I was selfish for wanting to expose my stepfather, and then there were also a lot of people saying I was a coward for it. Some people said I was letting the abuser off the hook by not telling my brothers. I got DMs calling me an enabler for abuse. People called me a liar for not answering James' question when we met the first time. I never said I wouldn't tell them about my past. Literally, in my last post, I said I was still working on how to share my past healthfully, with help from my therapist. But I had people acting like they knew best, and that I should tell both of them immediately. There seemed to be no way I could do this that wouldn't upset someone. I know that, and I'm trying to navigate this in my own way, so please respect that. Even if you would have done it differently. I'm by no means letting SD off the hook for abuse. I tried everything I could as a kid/teen to get him prosecuted. I've accepted that it'll never happen. Just know I'm a real person reading these comments, and not everything I do is perfect. But please, be kind. I'm not looking for more negativity. Anyway, in the week since my last post, I've met with my brothers 3 more times. Once with both and twice just with Richie. There seems to be an instant bond between us, something I didn't even know I wanted. I've really enjoyed hanging out with them, which is wild because I didn't even think I wanted to see any of my family again. Never mind start to build a good relationship with some of them. The last time I met Richie alone, we went to see a movie and then grabbed something to eat. We talked about our plans, what he's up to now, and then we touched on my time in foster care. I asked him what he was told about me growing up. He said they weren't told much, but our mom did mention me from time to time. I asked him what he remembered about me and why I was taken into care. He said he had vague memories and some clearer ones. But he admitted he wasn't sure what had really happened. He said he remembered a lot of fights and arguments between me and our stepdad. He mentioned he had one very clear memory of me, but he wasn't sure if it was appropriate to share. He asked what I remembered, and I said it was hard for me to talk about with anyone. He said he understood if I didn't want to go into it. I asked him what his clear memory was, and he recalled a time when I was around 8 years old. Our stepdad stripped me, put a dog collar on me, and forced me to eat dog food. He said he remembered our dad beating me with a belt while I was eating from the dog bowl and crying. This happened to me several times growing up, but he said he only remembered it happening once. I started crying, and he apologized for bringing it up. I told him not to apologize. I was glad he at least remembered some of the abuse I endured. He guessed that the abuse was why I was taken away. I confirmed it. I asked if our stepdad had ever abused them, and he said no, but he admitted he wasn't close to our mom or dad. He said they weren't loving or amazing people, but they weren't abusive either. He apologized again. We talked more about our childhoods, and I felt safer sharing my experiences of the abuse since he remembered some of it. We discussed it a bit more. I tried to answer his questions, and he answered some of mine. He asked if the trauma still affected me now, and I said yes. I was open with him about the times I tried to end my life because of it. He apologized for not being there for me, for not being by my side. I told him none of what happened was his fault or mine, and we can't change the past. After we were done, we both went our separate ways. He texted me later, saying he was glad I survived and that I kept going on living. I think he meant it sweetly, even though it came out a bit awkward. I felt really good having a brother who seems to care about me. I couldn't have imagined feeling this way just a few weeks ago. Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. Am I the asshole for losing my temper and calling my father a pathetic weakling in front of the family? My father has always been against any form of confrontation or argument. He's extremely passive, never standing up for himself, and avoids conflict at all costs. If someone bumps into him while walking, he insists it was his fault. If his boss messes up his paycheck, he won't bother to correct it. If a mechanic doesn't fix something properly, he just accepts it as is. Unfortunately, this led to a tumultuous childhood with my extremely narcissistic mother. She controlled every aspect of his life. She made him quit his job and become a stay-at-home dad. She forced him to do all the housework. She insulted him at every turn. She cheated on him constantly, and even brought her AP into our home. She took pleasure in making his life miserable every day, and he never questioned it. My extended family, God bless them, stood by me as much as they could. They spent years trying to convince my father to leave, but he never budged. When she turned her anger on me in the form of yelling insults or general degradation, my father never had the courage to stand up for or defend me. When I was a child, if I cried to him about something my mother did or said to me, he would brush it off or insist that I just forget about it. Hell, he would even try to justify it. As I grew older, I realized just how chaotic this all was. My mother happily kicked me out of the house when I was 18, and my father just sat there with a solemn expression. Didn't say a damn thing. I joined the Air Force almost immediately and got stationed on the other side of the country. The dynamics were horrible, and I could have easily gone down the incel path if it weren't for therapy and the amazing people I met along the way. It took years for me to reach a better mental space. I was filled with hatred. My mother left my father 2 years after I enlisted and completely destroyed him in the divorce. She was killed a year later in a DUI with one of her APs. I was overjoyed to learn it took her hours to die, and that's when I knew I really needed help to process everything. Now I'm nearing 30, have a girlfriend who is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, and she understands my family situation very well. I've learned not to let myself be consumed by the anger and resentment of my past, or so I thought, as you'll see, and instead channel that energy into my future. I've had extremely little contact / nearly no contact with my father since I left. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't form that connection with him. Recently, I attended a family reunion and brought my girlfriend along. My father was there because it was on his side of the family. They have plenty of issues with him, but he's family, so I guess that's how it is. I made it a point to keep my distance from him. I was chatting with some uncles when I overheard my father talking in the background. He was discussing how a coworker of his was going through a divorce after finding out his wife was cheating, and it was supposed to be a very favorable divorce for him. My father commented that his coworker should work on forgiving his wife and, in his own words, set a good example of unity and forgiveness, and that he believed he set a great example for me in that regard. I swear it was like a switch flipped in my head, and I mentally reverted to my 18-year-old rage. All these years, and he never learned a damn thing. I turned to him and asked if he was serious. He looked at me and started stammering. I know the next minute was just word vomit, and I can't recall it perfectly, but in essence, I yelled that he was a pathetic father, a pathetic man, that his family all knew he was a disgrace, that his son was treated like shit because he was too cowardly to stand up for him, that no one looked up to him, his wife would rather fuck half the neighborhood than touch him, and he should never believe anyone respected him. I started spiraling, and my girlfriend quickly ushered me out and drove me home. It was crazy how quickly getting away from him made me feel better. She just held me when we got back and told me it was okay. Again, the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm ashamed I lost it, and I'll definitely be continuing my therapy, that's for sure. But I'm glad I finally unloaded everything I needed to say to him. The extended family has had pretty mixed reactions. His brothers/uncle said it was about time he heard it from me. My grandparents are furious that I did it in front of the whole family, and some said I should have done it behind closed doors instead of in front of everyone. Related comments. Mesmerizing Taylor. It seems like you finally got out the emotions that have been building up for so long. While the outburst wasn't ideal, it sounds like it was a necessary step for healing. It's good that you're continuing therapy to work through this. OP, yeah, no kidding. I realized that while it was cathartic, it was definitely not the most appropriate way to handle it, lol. Never too much thought. He sounds like a gentle, kind, and well-meaning person. You've clearly directed a lot of your anger and resentment towards your mother at him. It's more complicated than just being an asshole or not. It sounds like you got some relief. I just don't think he's the person you really wanted to yell at, and from the sound of it, he was also a victim of your mother. And while he's an adult and should have known better, it's clear he didn't. Non-confrontation isn't just some character flaw. It's psychological. And maybe he needs therapy himself. Yelling at him and demeaning him really sounds like something your mother might have done, and I'm worried for you if that's what actually made you feel better about yourself. OOP, yes, I fully acknowledge he was a victim of my mother, but he was a victim with a support system he never wanted to use. He completely allowed me to be victimized throughout my childhood because it was clearly too much effort, and to this day, he doesn't believe he needs therapy. Never too much thought. All I can say is, based on your post and this interaction, your anger is deeply misplaced. And you're not seeing the real horror of the situation. You're acting like the mother you should truly hate. OOP, oh trust me, I hate her deeply, but she's gone, and holding a grudge against a dead person is pointless. However, I had hoped that after his son turned him into an outsider in his own life, his family publicly mocked his failures as a father, his ex-wife drained everything he had and forced him to start over in a one-bedroom apartment. His friends gradually left his life out of shame, that maybe he would have had at least one moment of reflection and thought he should have done things differently. Commenter, OOP is undergoing treatment for his past trauma. OOP, yeah, I definitely need to get back on that therapy train. It'll be good for me. As for my grandparents, I really had to reflect on how far back this triggering pattern goes. I know they did everything they could to try to help, but there always seemed to be moments when more drastic measures should have been taken. The times when everyone should have been a lot harsher in addressing his behavior. His side of the older generation is the classic, They're very devout, and we always stick together no matter what type, and I have to wonder if his passivity and enabling are something he learned from them. Update, August 20, 2024. Thanks for the advice and suggestions, even from some of the YTA judgments. However, some of those need to be addressed because they were either hilarious or disturbing. Some of them were so angry, and at first they confused me until I saw their comments further down or checked their profiles and saw them ranting about double standards or nonsensical rants about women. So yeah, not helpful advice and dark reflections on what I could have become without the support in my life. Some people tried to paint my father as this humble, kind, sensitive old man who was constantly bullied by me. This is a great insight into how abusers get away with so much in today's world, because many people forget that they too can be a part of the abuse. Some people are trying to dissect my psyche or have some gotcha moment with me to tear my story apart. Generally, that's just dumb, and I need to stay away from those before they start asking for my skull measurements or something. So almost immediately after waking up the next morning, I realized I needed to address what happened the night before. The first thing I did was talk to my girlfriend and offer a sincere apology for letting her see me like that. She reassured me that it was nothing. She's known me for years and always knows me as a calm person, and she understood why I snapped. She's also had her history of dealing with a narcissistic family, so she completely understood the outburst. She only really advised me that it's best to give my extended family some space, since my dad will always be around. I told her not to worry, and I'd talk to them immediately to work that out. So that was good. She looked like a champ, but I assured her it wouldn't happen again. I also informed her of my intent to continue therapy just to keep myself stable, and she was very pleased to hear that. I called my grandparents and sincerely apologized for disrupting their family reunion. It was inappropriate, and while I still feel good about saying it to him, it should have been said in private and not in front of everyone. I also told them that in the future, while I love spending time with them, since family gatherings are always a group thing where my father will always be involved, I need to distance myself occasionally until I feel comfortable being around him. I assured them I would never issue an ultimatum or demand of them, and that, in any case, I needed to step back. I guess during my apology and explanation, I was kind of circling around because my grandfather interrupted me to calm me down. He told me that after I left, everyone sort of broke off or gradually left, and eventually, they had a private conversation with my father. I guess seeing me so panicked led to my grandmother also getting a little panicky and starting to talk to my father, which led to her kicking him out. While I have a great relationship with both of them, my grandmother has always been extremely protective of me, so seeing me like that definitely set her off. My grandfather then told me that my father's failures had become a somewhat open family secret. His brothers mock him for it and generally don't have a good relationship with him, and for my grandparents, it's always been unpleasant. But seeing me the other day, and how much it still affected me, made them all realize how bad it really was. They started trying to apologize if they hadn't done enough, which I firmly pushed back on, saying they had done more than anyone could have expected. It was emotional for a minute, but it culminated in them telling me they had decided to distance themselves from my father for the time being and had given him an ultimatum that unless he sought deep inner reflection and regular therapy, that distance could become permanent. I was informed that my extended family would try to reach out or call or whatever, but I asked them if they could pass on to them that it wasn't necessary and that I was okay, and also apologized to them for ruining that day. And once again, they told me I shouldn't apologize for being hurt. Since then, the extended family has sent some messages with the general consensus that it was normal for some of the older members to complain about my disrespect toward my father. Finally, I texted my father with the hope of meeting at a local coffee shop to talk one last time. I met him, and he didn't look well. I guess his parents finally loving him got the message across. I could have said a lot of things, but instead, the first thing I asked him was if that coworker he advised was doing well. He just said that neither he nor some coworkers interacted with him anymore. I asked him if he truly believed 100% that everything he did for me as a child was for my benefit. He really didn't say anything. Finally, I asked if he regretted how he treated me as a child, and if he thought he had ever done anything wrong. He looked completely defeated and just muttered that he could have done more. I could have pried and pushed and maybe gone on another tirade, but instead I told him that this would be goodbye and that I hoped he would get the help he needed. I think finally venting my frustrations was what I needed to finally move on and find peace. I really need to keep up with therapy and acknowledge that the public blow-up was not okay, but I'll be all right.